This broadcast will start in 15 seconds. This broadcast will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, The Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Another amazing episode of The Phone Booth here on KXVS, The Voice of Stockton. Or should I say, The Voice of Stockton on KXVS Radio. I keep forgetting that we're upgrading our station name. My name is Edward Heitman, and joining me in the studio today is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez. How you doing today, man?
Good.
Good to hear, good to hear. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with what our show is all about, the Phone Booth is completely dedicated to the world of pop culture. Anything from movies to video games, TV shows, video games, comic books. I said video games twice, but it's whatever.
There's lots of video games.
Lots of video games. You name it, and we do our very best to cover it. Now, we are definitely excited to enter our discussion pieces for today, considering the fact that, unfortunately, we haven't been able to appear for the past 2 weeks. And on that behalf, I just want to apologize. The last week, it was on me. Had a bit of a sore throat, so I couldn't necessarily come in to do that week's show. But that just means that we have some more stuff to do a little recap on. So, without further ado, it's time for us to enter our little weekly recap, where we talk about some of the things that happened within this week. And, yeah, let's get things started. I'll start things off. So, it would appear as though there is a Plastic Man movie that's in the works. For those of you who are unfamiliar with who Plastic Man is, he is a DC Comics superhero, a man who has elastic capabilities as well as the ability to shapeshift, to change his form, and all that good stuff. Not much information has been given, but what we do know is that it will be written by Amanda Idoko and executive produced by Bob Shea. Now, I'm definitely excited about this because Plastic Man in comic books, essentially, throughout most of its interpretations, is a comedic relief superhero. And it has been implied that the Plastic Man movie is aiming more towards a comedy vibe, which is fun. It's definitely fun to consider, seeing as that's what they're going with Shazam. What are your thoughts on this, Brian?
I'll admit I was a little confused because DC has actually sort of gone all in on this type of character in that they have two characters with identical power sets with similar names. There's Plastic Man and Elastic Man. Elastic Man is currently appearing on The Flash, which is why I was confused as to why he was getting a movie, but he's not. It's Plastic Man, but both of them are really just rip-offs of Mr. Fantastic. So, we've got the three stretchy characters. Two of them are DC, one of them is Marvel, and it's... You know, it's a movie. It's probably gonna be fun. He's a wisecracking, ex-con with stretchy powers.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a nice touch, and this seems to be taking place within the DC extended universe. So we might even at one point in time see Plastic Man join the ranks of the Justice League, as he had occasionally for a brief period of time in his career. Mm-hmm. But we'll try and keep you ladies and gentlemen, informed on any additional information that may come out regarding this project. And I'll pass this next little bit of news over to my good friend Brian. Take it away, man.
So the Game Awards were not this weekend, but this week, and we got a lot of awards and a lot of announcements. Now there again were a lot of awards, a lot of them very sort of finicky. So we're just going to go over a few of the highlights, really, but we are going to go over quite a few of the announcements. So, first one, the big one, Game of the Year went to God of War, the 2018 sequel to the original trilogy. And as someone who actually got God of War over Black Friday and has been playing it a lot, it deserves Game of the Year. It is
truly
amazing.
Truly.
let's see what else we have. Sonic Fox, the fighting game pro, won Esports Player of the Year, which, you know, he is top ranked in a lot of fighting games. I believe it's currently Injustice 2, Marvel vs. Capcom, I believe Mortal Kombat as well. He is not just one of the best at one game, but he's just one of the best in the world. And Fortnite streamer Ninja got Content Creator of the Year. Now, not a big fan of Ninja, don't really like him, but, you know, he's popular, and I'd say he is probably the biggest content creator out there right now.
It is hard to watch any Fortnite video at the moment without hearing Ninja's name tossed in at least once.
Yeah, him playing with Drake was a huge thing back when it happened, and he's been playing with a few other people to less successful results, most notably his Fallout 76 play with Rick and Morty, which was just a thing.
Yeah, it happened. It happened.
But now to the announcements.
Yes.
First is the new Dragon Age title was announced. Now, we don't have an actual title for it, but it's being referred to as Dreadwolf Rises. We didn't see any gameplay. It's apparently still in very, very early development, but we did get a nice little cinematic teaser that lasted a few seconds that got my Dragon Age nerd blood a-pumping.
Yeah, you know, the teaser trailers, they do pretty good work. Same with the Elder Scrolls 6 when that dropped at E3.
We got the announcement that Persona 5's protagonist Joker will be the second DLC fighter in Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Now, I have an issue with this for some reason, and it's the same issue that I had when like Solid Snake got dropped in Super Smash Bros. It's like I'm fine with the fact that he's in the game, and it's cool that he's in the game, but same with Cloud and with Ryu, I just didn't understand why. You know, I don't get it.
Because, I mean, I think Smash Brothers has decided to stop treating itself as the Nintendo crossover game, and it's just trying to be the video game crossover game. It's, you know...
Gosh.
Injustice gets its Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mortal Kombat gets a few DC characters now and then, but Nintendo and Smash Brothers just get... They get Mega Man, they get Pac-Man, they get Solid Snake, they get Joker, they get...
I bet you after they announced Wii Fit Trainer, Nintendo was like, okay, we need to branch out.
Yeah. Let's see. There was a third Marvel Ultimate Alliance game. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 Black Order was announced as a Nintendo Switch exclusive game, which has us a little confused. I mean, we're excited that the game's coming, but
Oh, yeah.
Switch exclusive is an odd choice.
It really is, especially considering the fact that a large majority of the people that at least I know personally, I'm sure for other people it might be different, but a lot of people that I had bumped into who had played Marvel Ultimate Alliance had almost always been on a PlayStation console and occasionally Xbox. In fact, for the first Ultimate Alliance, wasn't it like only available on like the Wii and the game and like on a Game Boy console? Yeah.
Oh no, the first Ultimate Alliance was on like the Xbox and the PS2.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the I'm talking about which which Ultimate Alliance ended up on Nintendo.
I believe it was... One was basically ported to the Wii, and it had a Game Boy port, which was essentially a completely different game, like a lot of games had back then.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was never really one of the best-selling ones. It was really just there as an excuse to be on the Wii.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing that I was a little excited about with the Ultimate Alliance 3 trailer that dropped is that the gameplay looks pretty fun. I'm a little curious as to why they kept the 4-player build system, how it had like the little rings surrounding the character and whatnot. I have no complaints with it, but it feels like it feels like classic game mechanics, but with a nice polish put over it. You know?
Which, I mean, I've heard a lot of great things about the game mechanics. So if they just want to polish them, maybe iron out a few of the wrinkles and put it on the Switch, I think that's fine. I think game mechanics are some things that, you know, over decades, they improve and change in better ways, but I think over shorter amounts of time, they really just do need polish and a little tuning.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I agree with that.
Let's see, what else?
Far Cry.
Oh, yeah, Far Cry New Dawn was announced, which will be a smaller game in the vein of Far Cry Primal and Far Cry Blood Dragon that sort of, you know, takes place in between the big titles. New Dawn will be taking place 15 years after the end of Far Cry 5, where, spoiler, a nuke goes off.
Under the assumption that Seed was correct about the apocalypse happening. Now, the trailer seems to have gotten mixed reception. But honestly, I'm not really surprised with that, seeing as same with Far Cry 5 when it dropped, and Far Cry 4 and 3 when it dropped. Ubisoft has this way of immediately stirring controversy because they know that people are going to be interested in the game because of it. One thing that I can say, though, is that, of course, I am interested in playing the game. I like the open world mechanics that Far Cry has and everything. It's just, after experience with Far Cry 4, I pray to God that there are no eagles in this game.
God, the eagles.
The eagles. I cannot stand eagles because of that game, man.
A remake of Crash Team Racing was announced, which was an incredibly popular racing game starring the Crash Bandicoot characters.
Oh, yeah.
It seems after the success of the Insane Trilogy remake from last year, they're just going all in on remaking classic properties that people loved. Spyro's doing really well. And honestly, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, a lot of, I never played Crash Bandicoot or Spyro, and I'm thinking about getting them because I hear them talked about so much.
Oh, yeah, they're really fun. And one thing that I'm glad about the Insane Trilogy and the Reignited Trilogy when it came out is because of its success, though Spyro's Reignited Trilogy is having a little bit of complications. But due to their success, there have been a lot of classic games that are now being remastered. One of my favorite PlayStation classics of all time, Medieval, is finally getting a remastered edition, and I'm excited for that. And I am glad that Crash Team Racing is getting its own remake. I kind of hope that eventually we get another Crash Tag Team Racing. They had it for the PS2 for a while, and it was like Team Racing, except you had the ability to fuse two players' cars together to create one part's for weapons, and the other one's to drive around and everything. Kind of like a Twisted Metal kind of vibe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Obsidian announced their new title, and I'm just going to say right now, 2 games are coming out with very similar titles. They're Obsidian's Outer Worlds, and there's another developer's Outer Wilds. So if I screw those up, I apologize. But Obsidian announced Outer Worlds, which is a space-based RPG very much in the vein of Fallout New Vegas. In fact, a lot of people have been calling it essentially Fallout New Vegas in space. And it's also being worked on by the original creators of Fallout.
Mm-hmm.
From back, when it was the top-down isometric days.
Man, those look like fun days. I still need to play the classics.
Mm-hmm. They're those games that are good, but they haven't exactly aged well.
Yeah.
It's, they've been back in the 90s, so. And one more thing. Mortal Kombat 11 was announced and will be releasing in April of 2019. April 23rd, to be exact.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a problem with the music that was used in the release trailer, because the trailer itself is amazing. We get to see Scorpion and Raiden basically fight each other. Raiden looks a little evil with the red lightning in his eyes and whatnot, and things get really, really, really intense. But then out of nowhere, this hip-hop music starts playing out of nowhere, and it completely throws you off the vibe that the rest of the trailer had. You had your heart pumping, and it's like, oh right, it's a Mortal Kombat game.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Honestly, I'm not super hyped for this. It's not that I don't like the game. It's just, I'm apathetic towards Mortal Kombat. I'm not a huge fan of fighting games. I don't play them. Typically, I get excited about things like Injustice because I'm a huge DC fan, and the stories are typically pretty neat.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, so, moving along to the next little bit of news. To a recent survey, it would seem that this year, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. According to a survey of 2,200 people, and 25% of them confirmed that Die Hard, due to it taking place during the holiday, is a film for Christmas. Of course, this is debated every year for the past 30 years, so I wouldn't necessarily take that to heart. Honestly, I think Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It takes place during Christmas.
Yeah, it's interesting that 1,650 people are wrong about Die Hard. Because it absolutely is a Christmas movie.
And it's funny, too. I hear this debate so often. It's funny, too. When I watch Die Hard, I love it. I love the action scenes and whatnot, but I never watched it thinking, I wonder if this counts as a Christmas movie or not. And I just think it's funny that that's one thing that's always being debated over. But yeah, according to a survey this year it doesn't count. But next year it might count. Just hope that you're a part of that survey whenever it happens.
Yeah, Die Hard 1 and 2, they're Christmas movies. They take place at Christmas. Die Hard 4 is a 4th of July movie. And Die Hard 5 is a Boxing Day movie because you should put it in a box and throw it in the ocean.
Yep, I agree with that. That is a good one. I like that. Okay, well, passing along the news, over to you, man. Take it away.
So we have discussed at length in the past the fall of Telltale Games and the repercussions of it. Mm-hmm. And we discussed how Skybound Entertainment, the company owned by Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman, reacquired the rights to the final season of The Walking Dead and was rehiring a bunch of the developers. Well, it turns out they've done that. They're actually working in the original Telltale Studios that they were developing the game in, and they already have a release date for the third episode. It will be released on January 15th, 2019, which is incredibly fast considering development only resumed in mid-November.
It really is surprising. After hearing that all these people basically had lost their jobs and everything, even hearing when some people got rehired to finish the project, I figured that it would have taken months at least until we would hear something. At least a little longer than when we had announced it. But the fact that they're already back in their office, already on the grind, already getting another episode put up and everything, it's amazing. It's just, I really hope that they're not being put on crunch time, dude, because that's what it sounds like.
I don't think they're on crunch time. I think what it is they probably had a lot of the work done for episode 3 before Telltale shut down, because Telltale shut down like a week before the release of episode 2, where they would have had most of the work done on that and probably were pretty far into production on episode 3. So I'm guessing they just sort of finished off episode 3 in these last 2 months and will probably have a longer wait until episode 4.
Well, that's fair. But yeah, it is nice to hear that they're already getting things back on track.
Yeah.
So, moving along. Speaking of superhero movies, a Marvel hero seldom seen outside of the comic books will finally be getting his own film that's actually tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. According to Deadline, Shang-Chi, martial arts extraordinaire, will be getting his own movie. Not much information has been given, but what we do know is the writer for The Expendables, David Callahan, has been brought into the project, and then an actor for the lead role as well as a director for this project is still being sought after. Now, I'm definitely excited about this project, because one thing that they mentioned about this is that, in the vein of Black Panther, they want this to be a focus on Asian and Asian American culture. And they kind of want the whole cast and crew to basically be mostly Asian American. And I'm definitely excited about that, because it's one of the reasons why people love Black Panther so much, especially the movies. And I'm excited about that, and I'm also excited about the fact that, I have to be honest, I didn't really know too much about Shang-Chi.
Yeah, I'd honestly never heard of him before this, but I think apparently this movie's actually been in the works for a while. They've been working on it since the early 2000s.
Yeah, and it's fun, you know? I kind of like it when they introduce a character that really nobody knew about. Good example would be Guardians of the Galaxy. When it was being advertised, everybody was seeing it and was like, who are the Guardians of the Galaxy? I don't know who that is. And the same could be said about Captain Marvel. While she has been more recently advertised in the forefront of Marvel Comics, there were a lot of people who were like, who's Captain Marvel? I don't know who she is.
I think that actually works in Marvel's favor for things like Guardians of the Galaxy. No one outside the comic book fans knew who they were, which meant they had a lot more wiggle room to play with the characters. They had a lot more comedy to it. They actually changed up some of the visual designs of the characters to make them a bit less ridiculous, especially in Gamora's case.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this could be good. It could be like Iron Fist, but less terrible and racist.
yeah, let's definitely hope that it'd be successful. We haven't been given any information yet as to when we can expect a trailer, but we will definitely keep you guys informed if we get any more information regarding a director who's cast as the leading role and everything, because this is a project that's got potential, and I am definitely looking forward to it. Now, I'll pass the next little bit of news over to you, Brian. Take it away, man.
The creator of the raunchy point-and-click adventure game Leisure Suit
Larry.
I always forget Leisure Suit Larry has decided to sell the original source code of the game on eBay. This has been done in an attempt to get people to give the game more of a shot, which Leisure Suit Larry is. They're bad games. They're gross. They're weird. They're. And anyway, and it's supposed to bring people back to the classic days of gaming when you could be gross and weird over everything. Mm-hmm. It should be noted, however, that the sale would only include the source code and not the actual property rights to the franchise, Meaning, if someone were to take the code and make their own Leisure Suit Larry game and then sell it, it would most likely be, taken down by Sierra Interactive, and they'd be sued.
Yeah. Now, I found it a little interesting that they decided to sell this code. Now, it's not just any Leisure Suit Larry code that's being sold. It is the classic 1980s first ever Leisure Suit Larry game that was released. And the creator even pointed out that he had all these codes saved onto 5.5-inch floppy disks, basically. And he said that if you buy the code, you will need a computer that is compatible with 5.5-inch floppy disks in order to run it. Mm-hmm. But you will have full access to the code. You could just upload it, be able to play it, do whatever the heck you want to do with it and everything. I found it a little odd, though, because Leisure Suit Larry is definitely not a game that you hear much about nowadays. While there are still editions being made, it's still a very obscure, not many people pay attention to Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, even publishers didn't really want anything to do with it. Eventually, the games had to move over to Kickstarter to get funded, and eventually those stopped getting funded, which was sort of the death of the franchise. Until now, maybe they're bad games with gross interactions with women. It treats women like such objects. It's bad.
Yeah, it's definitely a product of its time. Much like what Duke Nukem was around its time.
And I think that Duke Nukem Forever sort of proved that it's very much a product of its time that can't really survive out of its time.
That's true. Leisure Suit Larry might have a bit more of a chance because it was a game that always appealed to the more womanizing kind of types, so perhaps it'll survive, but I guess we'll just have to see.
We have one more bit of news, and that the Nintendo's Creators Program is shutting down. Now, for those of you that don't know what this terrible, horrible thing is, it was essentially Nintendo's attempt to control YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine that went over great with everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially, back in 2014, Nintendo announced this program saying that creators, in order to post videos of Nintendo properties, would have to sign up with their program, fork over a share of the ad revenue, and agree to abide by Nintendo's family-friendly guidelines. Or, if they didn't, Nintendo essentially said they would abuse YouTube's copyright system to get these videos taken down falsely, basically, because they didn't actually have a right to do this, but they just knew they could abuse the system, so it would happen anyway.
Mm-hmm. Man.
Anyway, this led to sort of a drought of Nintendo properties on YouTube for a while now. In the last year or so, there's been more Nintendo stuff on YouTube because basically Nintendo stopped enforcing anything because they realized how dumb and terrible this was.
Especially around the time that Super Mario Odyssey had dropped. They definitely wanted the gameplay footage to get shown for that.
Yeah, Nintendo finally reached the point where YouTube was popular in their own sort of backwards timeline where they've only just discovered the internet and loot boxes. Well, they haven't actually discovered loot boxes yet. They just figured out DLC, basically. But now they've shut it down. They said they still want creators to abide by their some of their guidelines, essentially saying they can't just re-upload gameplay. They have to be making some sort of parody or critique or have some sort of commentary over it. Which, I think
it's
is fair.
It's fair. It's fair use laws, basically.
Yeah, fair use law. And this was a bad idea from the inception. It was a clear sign that Nintendo didn't understand something, so they were trying to control it. It was just a horrible idea from the outset, and it looks like they finally realized it's a horrible idea, and that in order to be taken seriously, they actually have to embrace the internet and not act like it's this thing that will go away eventually as a fad, because it's not.
I can definitely see this being very beneficial, not only for Nintendo, but also for content creators. Because I always kind of felt like there's like this golden rule to content creation, is that if you have enough people that do good videos regarding a specific video game, it'll motivate more people to want to create content surrounding that video game. Therefore, the company that created said game will get a lot more profit because of basically the effects of influencers out there. Mm-hmm. So Nintendo getting rid of this program is good, because the program was basically having Nintendo shoot itself in the foot, and removing it is finally realizing, hey, the bullet hole in your foot's getting a little infected, you might as well clean it up,
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Now, that about does it for our weekly recap, ladies and gentlemen, and now it is about time for us to enter our next segment, Trailer Talk.
And this is the big one.
Yes. In this segment, Brian and I like to talk about some of the latest trailers to drop within the week, and we also grabbed a trailer from a previous week. But we're going to start off with the big one. The trailer for Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
Now, its U.S. release date is May 3rd, 2019, starring Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, and others. And I'm going to let you describe it, Brian, because I'm too blown away to really come up with a full description of what this trailer is describing.
Okay, so we're going to spoil Infinity War here because there's no way we can talk about this movie without it. So
honestly, it's like nearly impossible to avoid spoilers for Infinity War nowadays. So.
And who hasn't seen Infinity War at this point? It's like the biggest movie of the year.
If you haven't seen the movie, you've at least seen the Thanos snap.
Yeah.
So we're not spoiling too much.
So at the end of Infinity War, Thanos snaps and wipes out half of all life in the universe. And this trailer isn't actually super heavy on the action or the plot. It's really dark, and it's really just about the shock of the heroes trying to recover from what just happened. We see Tony Stark, who was left on the ruined Titan after the snap happened, after everyone else with him got atomized. And he's been floating through space. He said he ran out of food and water 4 days ago, and that the oxygen will run out soon. And he's just recording a message for Pepper Potts saying, essentially, he's sorry. He's sorry that this happened. He's sorry that he left. And he's sorry that he's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back to the Earth heroes, which are most of the original Avengers, Captain America, Thor, Scarlet Witch. We see Hawkeye in a much... We see Hawkeye attacking someone with a sword, sort of brutally, and then he has this dark look on his face. Which,
yeah, he's taking on the role of Ronin.
Yeah, and it's sort of this reminder that Thanos wiped out half of life in the universe, but we don't actually know how those lines were cut down. So it's most likely that, like in the comics, Hawkeye's entire family was wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he seems to be this much darker, much more violent character. We see Bruce Banner seeming to have a breakdown at the amount of people they've lost. We see Captain America crying. We see... It's just... They know they lost. They know they lost, and they have come up with some sort of last-ditch, end-of-the-line, endgame strategy. We don't know what it is, or how they're going to fight Thanos and revert this. But they seem to know that this is all or nothing now.
But then... a twist at the very end of the trailer.
Yes. Okay, so I'm also going to spoil Ant-Man and the Wasp here a little bit. So Ant-Man and the Wasp is actually largely separate from Infinity War until you get to the end credits scene, where Ant-Man is in the quantum realm gathering quantum energy at the time of the snap. So everyone watching over him as he's in the quantum realm, which is basically the entire Pym Van Dyne family, gets wiped out, and he's stuck in the quantum realm. And we don't know how he gets out. We see he does get out, and he comes to the Avengers compound to try to... probably because it's the only place he can go now. It's the only place where he could, possibly find answers or solution to what's happening. Mm. We don't know about Ant-Man's family. We don't know about his daughter, his ex-wife, her new husband. We don't know if they're still alive or not.
But, man, I'm excited for that, mainly just because of that last part of the trailer, because that was a theory that was floating around for so long, that Ant-Man is going to have some very significant part to the next edition, to the next Avengers movie. The Quantum Realm had to have done something.
Yeah, the Quantum Realm is the realm used for the Pym particle shrinking power, but also it was pointed out, and it's a huge plot point in Ant-Man and the Wasp, that it can also be used to manipulate time. Mm-hmm. Which, as we saw with the Time Stone in Infinity War, it can, just sort of revert time back to a previous point. They destroyed the Mind Stone, but then Thanos reverted it back to being before that, took it, and that's how he completed the gauntlet. Mm-hmm. So it's entirely possible they may be able to rewind time back before the snap. The snap isn't like, it reverberates through history, so half of people were never born. It just wiped out half of people at that exact moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks great. They gave hints that Thanos is definitely going to be in Endgame, and I'm interested in seeing him make his return to this movie, just because he was a really interesting villain to watch with Infinity War, and you kind of just wonder how things are going to end with Endgame, because at the end of Infinity War, Thanos got exactly what he had wanted. Mm-hmm. He completely finished everything. His job was done. and the possibility that everybody would be coming back to reverse what Thanos did. I'm interested to see what kind of countermeasures he might try and place against the Avengers. All in all, I just hope to see everybody come back. I kind of miss Spider-Man, and Far From Home will eventually be happening, so I do kind of hope he does make his return soon.
Yeah, it'll be releasing like 2 months after Infinity War. They have the Marvel release timeline has sort of screwed them out of any surprise or hype they can build because, yeah, they killed Black Panther in Infinity War. We already know they're working on a sequel. Yeah, they killed Spider-Man. Sequel's already filming at that point.
Yep, basically. Well, anyways, on to the next little trailer. The second trailer that dropped for the Captain Marvel trailer. For the Captain Marvel movie, my apologies. Its U.S. release date is March 8th, 2019, starring Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, Jude Law, and others. The synopsis is that Carol Danvers becomes one of the universe's most powerful heroes when Earth is caught in the middle of a galactic war between two alien races. And this is directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. Now, the last trailer, we talked about the last trailer here on the phone booth when it had dropped. And one thing that we had pointed out was that it seems like they weren't really showing off anything with the movie when they dropped the first trailer.
They were introducing the character more than anything. They were just saying, hey, this is Captain Marvel, this is what she can do, this is sort of her entire emotional deal, but they weren't going that far into what the movie was about.
Yeah, but this next trailer that finally dropped, we finally got to get a little bit more information regarding the full story. We definitely got to hear a little bit more about the Kree, a race that plans on the Skrulls, a race that's planning on trying to invade Earth that takes the form of humans. Which was basically that scene where Captain Marvel punched the old lady in the face while she was sitting in the subway. This next trailer immediately opened up with her getting angry and then basically getting into a fight with Captain Marvel on the subway and everything.
Yeah, they got a lot of pushback to that punching an old lady scene. I can't imagine why. So they made it very clear in this next trailer that, yeah, she punches an old lady, and then the old lady, jumps up, starts jumping around, bends metal with her hands. It makes it very obvious that this old lady is, in fact, an alien, so it's, of course, completely okay to punch an old lady, as long as it's an alien.
And then they gave a little bit of backstory around Captain Marvel herself and how she is a Kree, noble intergalactic warriors, and basically she gave hints that she is in fact a human on Earth. She has Earth memories, but they're flashing in and out. She can't really recall where they're coming from or piece any of them together. Mm-hmm. And we got to see a little bit more of her powers. We got to see her in her full costume, which looks a lot like the Nova costume. For most of the Nova Corps in the comic books and whatnot.
They're similar designs.
Yeah, very similar designs. I gotta admit, I like the trailer. I like her abilities, I like her powers and whatnot. The only thing that kind of bugs me is just that costume. I know it's the staple costume for the comics and everything, and they didn't change any details. It's just, I personally have always had a little bit of a gripe with that costume. It just looks a little odd to me, I guess.
Yeah, that's legitimate.
But, yeah.
Also, I noticed they've done something interesting in which recently in the comics, they've actually altered Captain Marvel's origin slightly. It used to be that she met the alien hero Mar-Vell, who essentially gave her his power so she could become Captain Marvel. But in the comics recently, it's been slightly retconned, where it turns out that her mother is actually a Kree. So that it wasn't Mar-Vell giving her his powers, it was him activating her latent Kree powers, which has a lot of implications, a lot of feminist implications, but it also looks like, from the way things are phrased in the trailer, it looks like they'll be going with that origin as well, possibly meaning that the comics were actually changed to be more in line with the movie, which it happens.
It's reasonable. It's reasonable. All in all, I'm still excited to see the trailer. I thought people's performances were good. I'm definitely looking forward to Samuel L. Jackson's performance in this movie. He seems as though he's playing himself, which is awesome.
Yeah.
He's pulling off the role of younger Nick Fury pretty good.
He's a bit lighter of a Nick Fury. It's before he's lost his eye, and we get this nice scene of him sort of fawning over a cat, which I thought was nice. It shows a bit more lightness to this usually very serious or stoic character. It shows, something made him into the way he is, and we're probably going to see that in the movie. I think they've actually confirmed that we'll see how he lost his eye.
Yeah, they did confirm that. They said the Captain Marvel movie would be showing how he lost his eye and how he got a lot more involved with S.H.I.E.L.D. and things like that. So, on to the next trailer. This last one was actually from the previous week, but we had to talk about it because it is from a book series that I hold very dear to my heart.
I love it.
A lot of people love it. The trailer for Artemis Fowl, the live-action movie. Its U.S. release date is August 9th, 2019, starring Ferdia Shaw, Lara McDonald, Nanso Anozi, and others. Synopsis is that in order to rescue his criminal father and restore the family fortune, Artemis Fowl II and his trusted servant and bodyguard Butler seek the existence of fairies, believing that it makes a connection to his father, in hopes of robbing them. Directed by Kenneth Branagh. Now, the trailer looked good. I'm not going to lie. Visual effects wise, this looked very interesting. Now, I'm just a little cautious around the movie itself. Well, it seems to me that when books are adapted into movies, it's really hit or miss on its accuracy and how it's portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
The Harry Potter movies are an example of the books being done really well. While there are details that are occasionally not in the movies or details in the movies that aren't shown in the books, it still did pretty well.
Yeah.
But then there are movies like the Percy Jackson ones.
Oh, God.
That completely derailed itself from the books.
I loved Percy Jackson, but those movies were... Oh, my...
I couldn't even watch Sea of Monsters.
It was bad.
I stopped at the Lightning Thief.
It was bad.
I can imagine, man. And I'm really hoping that Artemis Fowl isn't like that, because most of it seemed good, but it also felt like it was going to try and go for like a bit of a Spy Kids vibe to it. And I don't know. But then again, that's always it's also with the issue that when you're reading books, as you pointed out before we did the show, Brian, when you read books, it's easier to overlook specific details of a character. And for Artemis Fowl, the easiest thing to overlook would be the fact that he is an 11-year-old criminal mastermind.
Yeah. Which has the inherent, oh my God, this sounds like a direct-to-TV Disney movie. Which, actually, this movie is being made by Disney. However, it's...
As evident with the title.
Yeah, it's... I don't know. It could be good, it could be bad. Kenneth Branagh has actually been working on this for a long time. The movie... The original printing of the book, when it came out in 2001, actually had a code in it that was part of a contest to win a, cameo in the movie. So this has been, 17 years in the making now.
Mm-hmm.
I think before the kid that's playing Artemis was even born.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Just bottom line, I'm glad the movie's being made. I remember being obsessed with the books back when I was in, 7th, 8th grade. And I was just dying for them to make a movie out of these books. Mm-hmm. So as cautious as I am about it, I am still very excited for the Artemis Fowl movie to finally get made. And that about does it for trailer talk for today's episode. Now, I apologize that we didn't link the trailers to the ones we were talking about. But I'm pretty sure that with Endgame and Captain Marvel, they're just floating around everywhere for people to check out. So feel free to give those a look.
Yeah.
Now, it's time to enter our discussion pieces. Which one should we talk about first, man?
Let's go with the Epic Store. Let's start with something a bit less
yes,
depressing.
Okay.
And angry.
Okay. You want to cover you want to do the intro for this one, or should I?
Sure, I'll do the intro.
All right, take it away, man.
So, Epic Games, the developers of Gears 4 and most notably right now Fortnite, have announced that they will be launching their own games store to compete with Steam, GOG, and Discord's recently announced service Nitro. Now, the big thing about Epic Games Store is that unlike Steam, it will only be taking a 12% cut of game sales as opposed to Steam's 30%, that's a lot of money in the long run for developers, especially indie devs. It has also been announced that they will be releasing a free game every 2 weeks, and starting with 2 games, which right now are Subnautica and Super Meat Boy. So these aren't small indie games. Well, Subnautica is fairly indie, but these are titles. These are games people know. That's actually pretty massive.
Oh, yeah. So we decided to talk about this because one thing that a lot of people are saying, and that Epic Games themselves are trying to say, is that their main priority is to try and rival Steam, one of the biggest game stores right now in the PC market. And we thought we'd take the opportunity to talk a little bit about some pros and cons about this site. Some things that we think are good about it compared to Steam, some things we might think might be bad compared to the whole thing rivaling with Steam. And I'd like to start off with the pros, I suppose. And one good benefactor is the reduce of the taxes, the fee.
Yeah.
The 30% extra fee on video games may think it's a little complicated to buy certain video games, especially for people like myself, who like occasionally can get at most like maybe $8-9 can buy a $10 game real quick. But then a lot of games can jump up in price unless you're entering the infamous summer sale, in which case everything is dropped severely. And one can only hope that the Epic Store would have some pretty decent discounts on their games when they drop, especially since they're already doing the one free game every 2 weeks thing.
Yeah, this is going to be great for developers, I think. I think it's going to inspire a lot more developers to move from Steam. Like one developer, Coffee Stain, who made Goat Simulator, has actually removed their game Satisfactory from Steam and put it up on Epic. So now it's an Epic Games exclusive, which is pretty big. It's, you know, they've already announced a few exclusive games, like Supergiant, the developer of Bastion, Transistor, has put their new game Hades up exclusively on the Epic Store, but it's another thing for a game to leave Steam and go Epic exclusive.
It definitely is interesting. One pro to this, I think, at least from the Steam perspective, is that considering the fact that they have new competition and that some of their games are being transferred from their site over to the Epic Store, maybe this will give Steam a bit more motivation to not only pay appreciation to the indie developers that are sticking around on their site, but might also motivate them to want to add extra content or at least improve content regarding their current Valve exclusives.
Yeah.
I know I'm an avid Team Fortress 2 player. I've been playing for a few weeks now. And one thing that I constantly hear from people is that a lot of people have been facing issues with the Source engine ever since the game had gone free to play. And it would have been easily fixed if, you know, Valve would take the time to work on it, but they haven't. And considering that they're now facing competition with Epic Games, and a lot of people seem to be backing up Epic Games on this one, maybe it'll motivate Steam to pay more attention to their games, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting how Epic is tackling this entire thing differently, because this isn't the first time something's popped up to, you know, rival Steam. EA has Origin, Ubisoft has Uplay, but those are both hampered by the fact that they're just games from a single developer. They're also really bad, but that's, you know, that's an entire different thing. Then there's GOG, which their main claim to fame is that they have more indie titles and they have DRM-free versions of most of the games on Steam, which is, you know, which is pretty big. And then there is Discord's Nitro service, which their main claim to fame is essentially their games are more integrated with Discord, which is, you know, the big gaming chat service right now. So that's great. But Epic just seems to be going, yeah, we'll give developers more money, basically. We'll give you more money, so, you know, come over to us, which is, they're not relying on gimmicks. They're just relying on, we'll pay you more.
Now, I have to confess, regarding this whole situation, I can't really think of too many cons, too many downsides to this whole thing.
There aren't really. It's nothing bad seems to be happening. I mean, it's more competition in the you know, online gaming market, which I'm always a fan of more competition. It, you know, it drives prices down. It incentivizes platform holders to be better. There are. I mean, it's never great when they're exclusive to certain services, but eventually, it's, you know, it's always free to make an account, and.
Yeah, you know, the whole thing. Bottom line is that the whole thing's pretty good. The only downside is that perhaps something might happen with Steam. But we don't even know if that'd be a bad thing or a good thing if something were to happen to Steam. One thing that I thought was a little odd, though Brian explained it to me and everything, was the fact that the Gears trilogy isn't listed on the Epic Store as of yet.
And that's because technically Epic doesn't actually own Gears of War. They developed the original trilogy, it was their idea, but they sold it to Microsoft. So now the games are being developed by the Coalition, and there's, you know, there's a XCOM type game being developed, there's a Funko Pop game being... I don't know what's going on with those, I've sort of been trying to ignore their existence.
Same here.
So it's possible that Gears of War could appear on the Epic Store, but since they're owned by Microsoft, they may, you know... Microsoft seemed to have given up on the Microsoft Windows Store thing because it was so bad from its conception. So maybe not. It's hard to tell. Wouldn't be surprised if it did, but also wouldn't be surprised if it didn't.
I honestly didn't even know for a while that there was even a Windows game store.
It was so bad.
With that little discussion piece being done, I think it is time for us to tackle the next one, and I'd like to save the very juiciest part for last. So, we're going to talk a little bit about everybody's favorite thing to talk about in video games, Fortnite dances.
You can't escape it. Fortnite is everywhere.
It is everywhere. It's so much so that people are claiming that Fortnite addiction is now an official thing, with plenty of evidence to back it up. But that really just boils down, as Brian said, to just overall video game addiction.
With Fortnite being the most popular video game right now, it's easy to apply addiction to the most popular thing. Like if you say someone's addicted to whiskey, when it's really just an alcohol addiction.
Yeah, basically. So, the whole thing that we're talking about right now regarding Fortnite dances, and the reason why I bring it up, recently, an artist, Millie, noticed that in the game Fortnite, his move, one of his dance moves, the Millie Wop, I want to say, or something like that, has been copied into Fortnite, and it has a completely different name too. It's the swish, or the swish dance, or something like that. Bottom line is, he pointed out the fact that he was fine with his dance being in the game, but for some reason he's not being credited, nor is he getting any form of compensation for it. So Epic Games is basically making bank off of his dance. So he copyrighted his dance move the day before he filed a lawsuit against Epic Games for this. Is this going to go through? I'm not entirely sure. Copywriting dance moves is a very slippery slope all around. The fact that you could copyright dance routines but not moves specifically. You have to completely verify that you are in fact the legitimate source of the dance move. All these different factors fall into play. But I wanted to talk about the fact that this isn't the only person whose most popular dance move has been completely ripped off by Fortnite. Well, I use the word ripped off very lightly. And there's no credit at all. At all.
Yeah, a lot of... It's primarily black dancers or black artists, but it's also, there are some white ones, there are Latino ones, but it's a lot of minority dancers have had their work essentially copied by Epic Games, put into the game without credit, and sold for a profit. Donald Faison, the actor, he created a dance for Scrubs that has become now the popular Fortnite dance. It's the dance most closely associated with the game. But he created that for, an episode of Scrubs about 13 years ago, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not credited. He's not been, compensated. It's just... Essentially, when it gets down to it, it seems like Epic Games is stealing the work of dancers, of actors, of performers of any kind, selling it as their own and refusing to credit it, and getting pretty defensive when they're called out on it.
Oh, yeah. And there's plenty of dance moves out there that have been ripped off by Fortnite. One clear example would be the Carlton. For those of you who might not be familiar, a while back, there was an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where the character Carlton started breakdancing to the song It's Not Unusual by Tom Jones. And it's this really silly, ridiculous dance that, while it has been listed in lots of other video games before, they were all listed as the Carlton and whatnot. Fortnite decided to do the same thing, but they're not giving any credit to the actor or anything. And a lot of people have been debating over this, whether Fortnite has the ability to do it or not. Now, like I said earlier, copywriting a dance move or claiming that you invented it is a very slippery slope. You can't just go and say, this specific dance move is mine. You can try and do a whole dance routine and be like, this is mine. I invented all of it. But a specific part is a lot harder to copyright. And then there's instances like the moonwalk. A lot of people assume that Michael Jackson had invented the moonwalk, but there's been evidence many times that people before Michael Jackson were doing the moonwalk. But he learned it, perfected it, and he's mostly associated with that dance move. So it's a very tricky thing.
And there's a tricky line between reference and stealing. Like, Destiny 2 actually has something of an issue with this. And it's, they've got a lot of dances that could be seen as stealing. But then there are some that are references. Like, there's the chicken dance from Arrested Development. It's very obviously the chicken dance. It's called something else. But is that stealing, or is it just a reference to a popular TV show? It's a sort of a weird line, and I think Fortnite has crossed that line into stealing at some points, but there is a bit more nuance to it than just, oh, they're stealing everything.
Yeah. Now, I feel like there's a very simple solution to Fortnite dances. Something that would get people to stop, And that's as simple as just a small credit. I know there's like stores and there where people browse the different dance moves that you can get and everything. And it's not that hard to just, in the bottom lower left corner, bottom right corner, whatever, just have the name of like the person who's most associated with it, where it came from, what show or what year or whatever you want to associate it with, it's fine.
Yeah.
At least give somebody some credit.
And you don't need, like, a little TM text box under it every time you do it in-game. But, like, when you're viewing it in the screens, when you're equipping it, whatever, just, have a little line of dialogue that says, from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, from Arrested Development, from Millie.
Yeah, things like that. But for some reason, Epic Games doesn't want to do that. That would easily diffuse the whole situation, but for some reason, they don't want to do that. They're very adamant in saying, no, we're fine with our dances. We're not doing anything to fix this.
Because it's a slippery slope, because if they start crediting people, then they might have to start compensating them. And Epic Games is still a business, and though they're riding high on Fortnite, they are, they want to make as much money as possible. It's how video game businesses work nowadays. It's sad, but it makes sense.
It does make sense, yes. So that about did it for that discussion piece. And now, without further ado, it is time to do a bit of a timeline on a company that has done so many mistakes within this year alone.
Oh.
This is the story of Bethesda and the train wreck of a minefield in a nuclear testing facility that is Fallout 76. And to begin this timeline, we're going to have to go all the way back to E3 2018. Now, during Bethesda's game show, where they were showing off various games and stuff, one thing that they advertised was an online multiplayer game set in the Fallout universe. You would be exploring the wastelands of West Virginia as one of the first few vault dwellers to enter your land, and it is your sole job to restore the land back to its former glory.
It was an amazing thing. They said it would be 4 times larger than Fallout 4, 16 times more detailed, and Todd Howard even came out and joked about, oh, sometimes their games have bugs, which makes you think, they've realized this. This is going to be a relatively bug-free game at launch. Hold on to that thought.
Yeah, please hold on to that thought. And one thing that they also did to kind of bait you into wanting to get this game, they talked about some of the stuff you can get from pre-order. They talked about the glow-in-the-dark map of the fields and everything, which, he bragged about quite a bit, considering the fact that it's just a map.
That was weird.
Yeah. But then eventually we were told of the Collector's Edition. Something that is going to contribute heavily into our track record of things that have gone wrong with 76 throughout the year. But basically, I'm going to give a small little rundown of the Collector's Edition, then we'll talk about the game itself, and then we'll talk about what happened with the Collector's Edition. So, the Collector's Edition got a lot of people to buy the game. Essentially, it is $200, $140 more than the $60 staple game at launch. It comes with the game in a steelbook case, equipped with all Tricentennial Edition DLC. It comes with the map, 24 collectible figurines, and most importantly, a T-45B power armor helmet scale replica equipped with its own noises, flashlight, voice warping sound effects, and a canvas bag to carry it around in.
It's actually a T-51B.
Ah, right. My apologies. I was thinking T-45 for some reason.
Can't make the Fallout nerds mad. T-51.
Yeah, T-51B. So anyways, people are excited about this. Well, people are 50-50 leading up to the game's release. People were like, okay, well, this might be good. Other people were like, this is going to be a terrible, terrible idea.
I was in the latter camp, and it was as things kept going that more announcements were made, like the fact that the game would be always online. It wouldn't have a single-player mode, which is never great, because what if the servers go down? Then you just can't play this game you paid money for. Then there was the announcement that there would be no NPCs. in this game that's supposedly 4 times larger than any other Fallout game that was packed with NPCs and quest givers and things like that.
And then there was the beta.
The beta.
The beta.
Now, for reference, a long time ago, like 8 or 10 years ago, betas used to actually be for people to test the game, to find bugs, and then report it back to the game company so they could fix them before the launch. Mm-hmm. However, betas have now just become glorified demos. They, sometimes drop a week or two before launch, way too late for any changes to be made. And often now they're actually sold as pre-order only, so you have to pre-order the game to test the game, except you're not actually testing the game, you're just demoing the game, so you're paying to play a demo that often doesn't carry over progress to when the main game launches. Sorry, that's an entire other thing.
Now, it is important to note that, of course, Fallout 76's beta was available only exclusively through pre-order, but though I can respect that given that a lot of games nowadays keep their betas in pre-order. However, the beta was launched quite a while before the actual game was actually released.
About a month, and this game, at least during the beta, was full of issues. There were bugs, there were glitches, there were overpowered enemies. There was actually a bug that actually completely deleted the game's files from your computer.
Oh yeah, it's so bad that some monsters would actually be going around in T-pose. Mm-hmm. And if you have your characters moving around in a T-pose, that is when you have reached peak stupidity when it comes to releasing a game. It's awful.
Yeah, for reference, T-pose is the basic pose that characters are put in when they're being designed. It's just they're like this. It's how they're easily designed, and
like
the artist put on effects. Yeah, and then animation is applied to it. So, they look like they're walking, they look like they're standing like a normal human being. They are never supposed to look like they're actually in T-pose. It's a pretty funny glitch on the rare occasions you usually encounter it.
Mm-hmm. Or like when somebody tries to be hilarious on Gary's mod and uses T-poses very often.
Yeah.
But this game was full of bugs, and people were afraid. People were afraid that this game was going to launch and that these bugs were still going to be evident. They were right.
Yeah.
Because eventually, this game dropped. And it dropped the ball. So many reasons. Would you like to explain everything that went wrong with 76, my friend?
Okay, let's go into this with one of the weirder things. Fallout 76 started with a download size of 50 gigabytes. However, download size isn't really ever download size, because there's also the day one patch, which is usually very small compared to the game. But Fallout 76 wanted to be different, so the day one patch was also 50 gigabytes. And then, less than a week later, they had another patch to fix some of the more glaring issues, which, guess the number here, 50 gigabytes. So this game, in less than a week, has gone from 50 gigabytes to 150 gigabytes. They tripled the size of the game.
Tripled it, man. They tripled it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So pretty much every bug that was present during the beta was present at launch. There were a few that were fixed, but none of the major ones because, well, and honestly, I'd say they didn't have enough time. They had a month. They could have fixed some of this.
Oh, yeah. People even found out this bug, this, little thing they can do to crash servers themselves. Now, in Fallout 76, you were given the option to launch nukes onto various parts of the map. In fact, people were already able to figure out the end game to 76 within, a month of its release using nukes to bring out the final boss.
Yep.
But it turned out that if you and two other people were able to launch 3 nukes at the exact same time, the overall explosion and graphics and whatnot would shut down the server you are on. It will kick you out. Mm-hmm. It was like the equivalency of Minecraft when you used way too many TNT crates and the overall explosion kicked you out of the server.
Except this is an actual gameplay mechanic that you're supposed to be able to use. There was also issues with the stasas not being big enough. With power armor, sometimes your character could just become stuck in it, couldn't take it off. Or sometimes it would just become stuck in your inventory, couldn't put it on. There's still an issue where the mining farming materials, you have the little miners for this material, little gatherers for that material. It only works if you're logged in. So if you have to be in the server for it to mine materials, and it resets every time you leave, which is an issue because the game crashes like crazy. So often you lose a bunch of progress because the game can't stay up.
Yeah, the whole thing is unfortunate. There are a ton of problems with 76 right now. But that's not even the end of it.
No.
That's the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
The main issue right now is a controversy I'm actually doing a video about on my channel, and the controversy has a nice little name of Baggate. Now, you guys remember Puddlegate, right? It was a whole controversy spiraling around gamers being upset over the lack of puddles in Marvel Spider-Man. The game company proved them wrong and was able to show that there was plenty of puddles in there.
Mm-hmm. So many puddles.
But this Gate controversy revolves around gamers being upset about something not being evident from its original release, and the game company just saying, so what? Now, we go back to the collector's edition, the power armor helmet, and the bag it would carry it in. It's supposed to be a stable canvas bag, military style, good little bag to carry around a heavy power armor helmet wherever you had to go. However, people who finally received the edition, instead of a canvas bag, they were given the cheapest quality nylon bag imaginable. So bad that you could actually see through the bag.
Yep.
Now, of course, this was ignored for a moment, because people were way too excited just to have that power armor helmet. They didn't care about the bag.
Mm-hmm.
This was until somebody sent an email to Bethesda saying, look, you guys advertised a canvas bag. I got this really cheap nylon bag. I wasn't happy with this. Why didn't I get this bag? Can you guys please send a response? Their response was, we apologize that you didn't like the bag. The one that we advertised was a prototype, and it was too expensive for us to make. And they literally said this, we aren't planning on doing anything about it.
Yep.
So they openly said, hey, we know that we lied to you guys. That's it. We're not gonna fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So people got into an outrage. Lots of people got into an outrage. In fact, a class action lawsuit is in the process of being filed against 76 over this controversy. Here lies their first solution. First, they eventually make an opening statement to where they basically throw that employee under the bus who sent the email, saying, oh, well, he was just a temporary worker. He's not officially with Bethesda. We wouldn't ever say things like that to you guys. And to make up for this whole controversy, we're going to give you 500 atoms in-game currency for you to spend however you would like. Just let us know and we will give you that in-game currency. Ladies and gentlemen, 500 atoms translated to US dollars is $5.
Yeah.
You could buy a door and 5 flowers with that currency.
Fun fact, there's actually an outfit you can buy with atoms in-game that has a canvas bag on it. It costs 700 atoms.
Can't even afford it.
You can't even afford a fake canvas bag with that money.
Oh yeah, it was horrible. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. People found out later on that before the game's release, certain influencers, a very common buzzword out there that's basically people who are very active on YouTube or social media, whose presence alone will influence people to buy the things that they have. Mm-hmm. It turns out that Bethesda gave these influencers early access canvas bags. Not necessarily like the ones in the picture, but a lot closer to the ones in the picture compared to the people who got the collector's edition.
Yeah, they were these sort of nice canvas backpack type things. They weren't as, themed. They just sort of had the Fallout 76 logo stitched on it. But they were still these nice canvas backpacks that were given for free to influencers. In fact, they were actually given out at 2 events. They were given out at QuakeCon and a Fallout 76 pre-release event. So if Bethesda really liked you and you got invited to both, you could have 2 canvas bags, while the people that paid $200 get 0. They don't even get a fake canvas bag.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. My main issue with the nylon bag is that nylon corrodes over time. Mm-hmm. So in the future, years, months, who knows how long, someone is going to bump into their old bag with the power armor helmet in and be like, wow, I remember getting that bag in that edition. do a little bit of a rambling. And as they unzip the bag and try and open it, the nylon, it sticks when it corrodes. So it could rip the paint job right off of the helmet, making it lose its value entirely, which is insane. But then eventually Bethesda caves. They say, okay, you know what? Fine. We realize that you guys are upset and that you're not comfortable with what we did to try and repay you, so you know what? We will give you guys the canvas bags you advertised. Let us know that you bought the collector's edition, and we will give you this digital ticket, basically, a support ticket. Submit it to our website, and then when the canvas bags are finally produced, we will give you your very own canvas bag. Even that didn't work out well, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
It would seem as though there was a bug in their system, on their support page, to where somehow, for a brief period of time, people's sale information was available right there on the support page for everybody to see.
Yeah.
Their usernames, their names, their emails, their mailing address, and their credit card types were available for everybody to see. Of course, things like passwords and credit card numbers were of course kept secret. Things would just been way more of a disaster if that were the case.
Still, they gave out like home addresses in some cases if you don't have a P.O. box, which I think you should have a P.O. box. It's safer.
Yeah. But essentially, it got to the point where people who played 76 were telling other people that you got to even be cautious to turn in your ticket to get the bag you want, because you might end up getting doxxed accidentally. And Bethesda says they fixed this issue. It shouldn't be a problem anymore. But all in all, that's where we lead up to now. A complete track record of how a game that seemed fine on pen and paper snowballed into like one of the biggest gaming disasters, I want to say, that has happened so far.
At least of the year.
At least of the year, regarding controversy. Because it's not just the fact that the game itself was bad. It's the fact that Bethesda would try so hard to show such poor business practices regarding their collector's edition bags. They're essentially saying, yeah, we know that you guys didn't get the bag you want. We don't care. You guys are going to be fine with it. We know you guys are going to be fine with it. And then they seem to be like confused. It's like, how are you guys not fine with these bags?
This entire thing reeks of contempt and arrogance. And it seems like Bethesda thought we'd be fine with it because they're Bethesda. They create these well-loved games. They create Fallout. They created Skyrim and Oblivion. They create these great games everyone loves. So why wouldn't we just, eat up whatever they give us, even if it's inherently broken, even if it's not what they advertised and sold to us? Because they're Bethesda. They could get away with it. Well, now they can't. And now, I love this irony, in order to save money by producing the nylon bags, they have had to produce the nylon bags, pay for that. They're now going to have to produce the much more expensive canvas bags and pay for shipping to get them to the people affected. So they have maybe double the price of the bags at this point.
Yeah.
At least. Probably more.
They definitely shot themselves in the foot with this whole incident. And after all this, I just can't help but look at Bethesda from a different perspective. I only recently started getting into the world of pop culture journalism, so for the longest time I had absolutely no problems with Bethesda. Of course, I would complain about their game's engine, but everybody's complained about Bethesda's game engine, and it's a little odd that they want to stick to that engine, but this is on a whole nother level. This was them trying to basically go over everybody's head, like they thought they would get away with it, and I can't respect them for that anymore. And I can't help but feel like this is the case for a lot of AAA game publishers this year. So many instances to where game companies that I were totally fine with at first now hate, because it seems like everybody's now trying to do the worst business practices ever. You have EA that's openly mocking people who are upset about Battlefield 5. You have Telltale Games and their open crunch time that was exposed to the employees. You have Rockstar with their whole crunch time fiasco regarding Red Dead Redemption 2. And now you have this. It's like there aren't really many game companies out there that are just on the up and up. trying their best to just be a respectable game company. Because it seems like eventually, as you progress, it's only a matter of time until you start corrupting yourself a little bit, it feels. And it's kind of disheartening to know that, you know?
Yeah, and I've become sort of numb to it. I kind of expect the worst from game publishers now. Any of them I do respect. I respect with sort of this apprehension that eventually they're going to do something that takes it away, like Digital Extremes, the creators of Warframe. Seem great. Can't wait for them to do something that screws that up.
Yeah.
I love video games, but I hate the industry they exist in. I hate the industry that creates them, that sells them, that monetizes them to no end.
Yeah, I have my issues with the industry itself, but as more indie games and more indie game companies are starting to, from what I've noticed, are starting to get into more popularity. A lot of smaller named titles are now officially getting its feet in the water now, starting to get more recognition. We can only hope that in the future there will be some more game companies that could compete against the AAA publishers. People with better standards. One company that I don't really have too much of a problem with is CD Projekt Red. Even though they really need to work on their social media and who's running it. Because that seems to be the only main problem they've been facing for quite a minute now. But I feel like whoever's running these game companies need to take a minute to look at themselves. And look at how people are reacting to everyone else. Figure out what people are doing wrong. What they might be doing that might be wrong and how they can correct it. Because I feel like if right now, especially in this point in time, the best way for your game company to be successful is to just not be corrupt. Just try your best to stay on the up and up, and people will respect that. And if people respect you, people will be more willing to try out your games.
Yep.
But that about wraps that up. And that about wraps up today's episode of The Phone Booth. I hope you guys had fun listening to today's episode. Feel free to check us out. We have some extra episodes on The Voice of Stockton on KXVS's Facebook page, as well as YouTube and Twitter. Be sure to stick around next week when we do our best to cover everything from movies to TV shows to video games and comic books. Until then, my name is Ed Heitman. Joining me in the studio today is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
See ya.
You guys have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.